You started in HVAC at just 17 years old.
1 week in school, the other week in the field, and then.
So how do you see the HVAC industry being evolved?
But I think it's going to become more of like an e-commerce solution. BlackRock is buying homes at an alarming rate. What I tell contractors is, what is it going to look like when 50% of the homes that you had in your portfolio are gone? I have friends and contractors, and they'll have $150 million, $200, $300 million HVAC companies. I think a really good book was
What do you think is the exact difference between a company like yours, who's pretty big, compared to one man and a van kind of companies?
It's 100% a different mentality. The biggest thing that I've learned was how to fire myself.
How you keep everything running smoothly when you can't be everywhere at once?
I'm very much like a salesperson. I'm very much like, go out there, figure it out, and just get it done. Mentality is more like jump off the cliff and figure out how to assemble the wings on the way down and hope that you can start flying before you do.
What wisdom or what kind of strategy would you share with young technicians who are kind of dreaming, of owning their own business?
That's what I think is so amazing for this industry. It's creating millionaires left and right. At the end of the day, everybody talks about culture, and it's like such a buzzword.
Welcome to the HVAC Hotshots, the podcast where HVAC entrepreneurs like you learn to dominate your market and build multi-million-dollar empires. Every week, we bring you proven strategies, expert insights, and inspiring stories from industry leaders who have been in the trenches and come out on top. Whether you are just starting out or scaling up, this is your go-to resource to ignite your business goal. So buckle up, hotshot. It's time to turn up the heat and make your HVAC dreams a reality. Hello everyone, I'm Yash this side and welcome to the episode 10 of the HVAC Hotshots. Today we have got a really special guest joining us, Jonathan, owner of Green Energy Mechanical AC Heating and Plumbing Repair. Jonathan, thanks for being here, man.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Before we kind of, get into the question part and stuff like that, what caught my attention right away is that you started in HVAC at just 17 years old. That's pretty young. What exactly drew you to the trade at that age, and what other interesting things, I would say, were you juggling, alongside HVAC during those early days?
Yeah, so I went to a vocational high school, and I was able to get introduced into this industry around like 14 years old. Started like getting into my exploratory, didn't know anything about this field at all at that point, but just looking up some basic stuff online, it really looked like it was probably the one trade that was going to have a lot of evolution. And that was very intriguing to me, combined with all the different skill sets you would need to know to be effective in the field, being, understanding electrical, plumbing, airflow, all those things. And so, and that's exactly what it's been. It's probably, I feel like, the one industry for the trades that's evolved so much since I've gone into it. And at 17, I just went out and started working at a company doing a co-op every other week. 1 week in school, the other week in the field. And then when I graduated high school, I just went a full deep dive in.
Makes perfect sense. And here's a two follow-up question. First, you talk about evolution, right? So how do you see the HVAC industry being evolved? Where do you see the HVAC industry heading to in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, so my company is kind of set up with that evolution in mind. So I was from 17 years old for about 10 years. I worked for other companies, and then at 27, I started my own company, Green Energy Mechanical, with the idea that, people probably will pay a little bit extra to have a company that is going to give them amazing service and kind of focus more on helping them save energy as well as helping the environment, right? And that's really always been our play from day one. At the time, a lot of people didn't really care much about that. They just were like, you're the only person talking to us about heat pumps. And especially up here in the Northeast, there wasn't a lot of options in 2011 for that, other than like geothermal, which, we were doing a little bit back then. Fast forward a couple of years, and then Mitsubishi started having their Mitsubishi hyperheat systems. And at the time, it was like one condenser and one indoor ductless unit. And I kind of saw a little niche there, and I was like, I could probably convince some people to like let us try this and heat their home, with this. And so I failed. Nobody wanted us to do it at all. And I had one lady named Jennifer who lived in Boston, and she lived in one of like the triple deckers, and she had a boiler that heated like baseboard hot water pipes in her house, and it was installed illegally in the 80s. So much so that it actually caught fire. It's about 2012, 2013. Fire department came, sprayed her whole inside of her home, ruined the home. And there was no way to legally replace that and put in another gas-fired boiler. So she was facing this dilemma, like, how do I get heat in my home? I need to, I haven't lived in this home for like 5-6 months. What can we do? And I'm like, well, there are these ductless heat pump systems that we could put in that I see people using them in really cold climates. And, I had her sign all these clauses saying like it may or may not work when it gets really cold out. So we installed them in her home. We're starting them up. And it actually was like a 15-20 degree day when we were starting them up. And while we're in the home testing them, we're like ripping off our clothes. Oh my God, it's so hot in here. And it was amazing. And so from her, she just started telling all her friends and family about us. And then we just naturally started growing where we were doing whole home heat pump systems in Boston, Massachusetts at around 2012. Nobody was doing that. Every other contractor was like, hey, it doesn't work when it gets really cold out. When it gets really cold out, you're going to be, pipes are going to freeze and on and on. And now, fast forward from 2012 to 2025, it's extremely popular in Massachusetts. The state's actually giving rebate programs, 0% financing. Every oil contractor and plumber that knows how to turn a wrench is jumping in to be like, hey, I know how to install heat pumps, right? For us, it's nice because I have the authority and history to say, hey, we've been installing these for over a decade, way before our competitors. So we know how to design them correctly, install them correctly, and service them correctly, which makes a huge difference. And so that's like a little bit of like the evolution that I was talking about, where instead of having to use fossil fuel systems, you could start using technology and advancements to actually heat and cool your home that put off a lot less greenhouse emissions and allows you to heat and cool places that you may not be able to properly vent a fossil fuel system. And so moving forward, we're going to probably see a lot more of that. There's going to be a lot more applications for heat pumps, especially with the refrigerant changes and things of that sort. And then just as far as evolution with our industry in general, I think it's definitely going to become more of like, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but I think it's going to become more of like an e-commerce solution. It's probably a little bit off topic, I would say, but I think if you look at the country, BlackRock is buying homes, single-family homes, at an alarming rate, right? So if you fast forward, let's say, I don't know, 5-6 years from now, there's already studies that show that by 2030, they're going to own 40% or more of the single-family housing market in America. Now, regardless if that number's off by 5% or whatever, even 10%, who cares? What I tell contractors is, what is it going to look like in 5 to 10 years when 50% of the homes that you had in your portfolio are gone? What's that going to look like? It's going to completely change how we do business, right? In addition, you have companies like Google that are just collecting tons and tons of data that they're able to take all the data from local service ads and all these other things, where what's preventing them from maybe scooping up some of these PE companies that have a bunch of HVAC companies and then be able to just be like, hey, you need a new furnace, you go on Google, you get a Google guaranteed contractor, you get a price, 0% financing. It makes it very simple for customers to go online. They trust Google, and now they have a contractor that's going to come. Maybe the van even says Google, and the Google company comes and installs it, puts a Google Nest on it, right? They're already starting with all this stuff. So I really believe that's kind of where things are going in the industry. How that's going to affect all of us, I think we have to kind of wait and see, where people will still need, because it's not always as easy as like a cookie cutter solution, especially out here in the Northeast.
Exactly. And that's some really good insights. Talking about the name, Green Energy Mechanical. It's a name that tells a story. How did you actually land on that? Because it seems to capture exactly what you're about.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. Like I said, I always was really focused on trying to be different. Uh, up here in the Massachusetts area, there's a lot of like one man bands, I call them, or chucking the trucks. And especially with our licensing process here, you don't see a ton of, I have friends and contractors around the country and they'll have 150 million, 200, $300 million HVAC companies. You don't really see that here in Massachusetts. You might have like a 70 million and that in like a huge company. Most of them are going to be $2, $3 million companies, a couple guys, are in a van or something. Right. And so for me, I worked at a company back in the early 2000s that he was very much ahead of his time. He was really always trying to be energy efficient. I don't think he's in business anymore because he was pretty old at the time when I worked there. But he was, sent me to school to learn geothermal and, he using heat pumps and other applications, even though at the time there really wasn't too much for that other than like supplemental heating. But I got this amazing experience in here. Fast forward to 2010, 2011, working at different companies, and customers would say, "This is great. I love the solution. Let me ask you a question. Are there any other energy efficient alternatives that we can do?" And the company's like, "No, that's all we could do. Replace your boiler, replace your furnace, get in, get out, make a quick buck." And it just kind of hit me because I'm like, I have a feeling that like people will be interested in that, and want to spend money with a company that expertly designs a system and is going to stand behind it and really cares about that. And I read a business book that talked about companies having more than one bottom line. And so I thought, how amazing would that be to have one bottom line being profit, but the other bottom line actually making an impact on the environment and the world. And so Green Energy Mechanical was born from there.
What's the name of that book and is that publicly available?
Yeah, it's an old one now. It was called Campus CEO. So I was in college at the time. My wife bought the book for me. Um, it was one of the guys, he ran actually on The Apprentice and on One at the time. And then he wrote this book, Campus CEO. And the idea was like, you could use your college campus as a way to kind of like incubate your company before you get going. Um, but it was good. It really helped me learn like fundamental things that I applied later, like, learning like your value propositions and, SWOT analysis and little things that I didn't really know, never being a business owner. And I was able to just kind of like, okay, I have this idea, another bottom line, something like Green Energy Mechanical, and then started figuring out like, what is my value proposition? Like, what is the SWOT analysis? What are going to and threats, the strengths, the weaknesses, and kind of formulate it from there, starting off. But there's a lot of books today that I'd recommend that probably are as good or much better than that.
Name some.
Oh yeah. I think a really good book was the E-Myth, as well as the E-Myth HVAC Contractor. I think Michael Gerber and Ken Goodrich did a great job. The HVAC contractor portion, if someone's interested in that side. Traction, I think, is a great business book.
We're reading.
You're reading that now? Yeah, that's a really good one. Good to Great. That's another really good one. I mean, I've read so many books. I read a lot like with sales. I have a big passion for like sales and stuff as well. So I do a lot of reading on that side, as well. So
Perfect. Perfect. Actually, I just bought Good to Great yesterday. So interesting. You talked about, one man and a van kind of stuff. What do you think is the exact difference between a company like yours, who's pretty big, compared to one man and a van kind of companies?
yeah, I mean, there'd be a lot of differences. What in particular are you referring to? Like the person themselves or the company, or what do you mean?
I mean the difference between a company, the mentality, and how they kind of run.
Yeah. So sometimes I get this question a lot. Again, especially being in Massachusetts, I have friends who own other companies and they might be just themselves in a van, or they might have, one or two or three people working for them. And they'll ask questions like, hey, how do I scale and how do I grow? And it's 100% a different mentality. The biggest thing that I've learned that really helped me out was learning how to fire myself. And so what I mean by that is like when you're a one man band, you're kind of doing like every single thing. And if you do it for too long, sometimes people have the habit of like wanting control and trying to gain control. And what I've learned is that through different stages of my company as it's grown, I had to learn how to be comfortable with not being able to have that same level of control per se, but then also putting processes and systems in place that allowed me to have that control from a distance. And so that's hard to do when you're not a business minded person. You know, you didn't go to school for business, or this is the first company I've ever owned. And so how it works is for the next level that I need to get to, I've never been at that next level, right? So like I'm looking for, okay, what does that next level look like? How does the company feel? Who do I need in place for it? What information's out there that I need to know in order to know what that company should look like and operate like? What things is that doing that I'm not doing now? How do we get them in place? What's the timeline for it? So those are all questions that I'm asking myself to prepare myself. And it's really the same thing from going like a single man company to like a $5 million company, right? It's just like, okay, well, what's that $5 million company do? How does it operate? What does it look like? Who are the people that I need in place? How do I fire myself, for instance, out of being the central call taker and the service technician and the installer and the salesperson? And so learning how to like, okay, I'm in this role. This is the next role that I have this org chart. My name's in the whole thing, right? When you're first starting off, what's the ones that I'm going to be able to most easily get rid of? The ones that I probably want to get rid of to start would be the ones that there's a really good book called The Six Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni, one of my favorite authors. Another HVAC owner actually bought the book for me. And I loved it. And what it taught me was that there's certain things that all of us have as far as like geniuses that we like to do, right? I might be like an inventor and a visionary where someone else hates that type of work, but they might be really analytical and love to like see a project all the way through and get into the nitty gritty. Me personally, I'm the type of person that I'll come up with this idea. I'll say, hey, this is the idea, but I'm not the implementer. The implementation side of it really drags me down. It's not that I can't do it. It's just that it's not something that gives me life and energy, right? Absolutely. So that's the type of thing that I'm going to want to fire myself out of. I'm going to want to get somebody in that role that's then going to take that and find someone that is they love that. They love getting in the nitty gritty. They love, you know, working on a project that's really difficult and putting in SOPs and processes and writing this all out. I hate that stuff. That makes my eyes burn, right? I'm not the right person for that role. So hire somebody and fire myself out of that role. And then you also need to be able to hold them accountable and stuff. That's perfect. That's really how it would start, would be like, okay, all the ones that I'm not the best at, that I hate doing, I want to hire people for those. And then from there, start going from there. I'll tell you, the really hard part isn't so much hiring people for roles that I hate. It would be firing myself out of roles that I love. That's the one that I had the really toughest time with, where, perfect example, like I really enjoyed being a service technician. I love, and that's what drew me to this industry. Even when I ran my company for a while, I was the sole service tech for a while I had installers. And then eventually I needed to fire myself out of that role. And it was a weird like identity crisis, because I'm like, I'm not the know-it-all service tech that like geeks out on this stuff and like loves to like fix things and helps people. And it was kind of like a weird situation for me. But then from there, I started to really get into the sales component. Man, I love sales though. And I wasn't that good at it. So I started learning and applying myself and getting better and taking classes and going to classes and getting training. And then I got really good at it. And then I really started to love it. And that became my identity. And then eventually I couldn't grow anymore because I was the one holding my company back. I needed to fire myself out of being the only sales guy. Then eventually I needed to fire myself out of being in sales altogether. Then eventually I'm the sales manager, and I didn't really know much about sales management. And so I had to go to school, learn that, or go to classes, learn that, read books on it, right? Talk to other people, go visit shops that sit with their sales manager. And then that became my identity for a while. And I really love that. And I love like helping the guys and being there as the back support and helping them sales. And then eventually like that was like, hey, you're not the right person for that role. I need to fire myself out of that. And then that became like, okay, now what? Well, now I'm at this crossroads where I'm like, I really want my company to be a $20 million company with double digit profit. There's a lot of $20 million companies around here with 3, 4, 5% profit. I don't want that. Well, my goal is like, okay, what does that look like, sound like? Who do I need to hire? What processes and systems do I need in place in order to reach that level and get there? So that's every time it happens, it's the same process over and over again, I feel like.
Absolute genius. Firstly, congrats on your success, man. Uh, Second thing, I can see, and when I'm talking to, I see that you're a constant learner, and this one ability to kind of learn constantly adapt. This is something which I've seen common throughout the guys I've talked to who have built great companies out there. Coming to the second question, you're running 3 locations, which is no small feat. Could you walk me through how you keep everything running smoothly when you can't be everywhere at once, obviously? And what sort of systems have you put in place to maintain that quality control?
Yeah, so it's not easy. By nature, I'm not a very organized person at all. If you could see what my desk looks like right now, no, it's ah, very disorganized. So coming up with processes and systems does not come to me naturally. I'm very much like a salesperson. I'm very much like go out there, figure it out, and just get it done. And so my wife helps me with a lot on that side because she is more process driven. And together we kind of work really well. So she runs the business with me, and I'll be like the visionary in this where I'm saying, hey, like I want to have multiple locations, especially because I want to be able to dominate certain local markets and have Google My Business profiles in other areas that are really good areas for me to be at. But it's going to come with, some processes, right? Like if the call center, for instance, the people in the call center, someone calls and said, hey, I have a furnace that's not working. Where are you guys located? And they're like, we're located 50 miles away, but I have an office that's actually 5 minutes away, and they don't know that. That's going to, the person would, okay, click, right? Absolutely. How do I know that? Well, it's because, that's exactly the problems we ran into. So sometimes for me, unfortunately, like I'm very hard headed and I got to learn things the hard way. And then that's where I'll say, but what I like to think is that sometimes what I see even with people in the organization or even at other companies is they'll have a problem. And I'm really in love with, if you ever have a moment, have you ever watched, it's a really short video, it's like 2 or 3 minutes. Jocko Willicks on YouTube. He wrote the book Extreme Ownership. Have you heard of him before?
I'm not really.
Jocko? Yeah. Well, that book is phenomenal, Extreme Ownership. But he has a video on YouTube that's called Good. So if you just like type in Jocko Willicks Good, it's 2, 3 minutes. I literally watch this probably like 50 times a year because I want to embody this mindset. And what this mindset is for me is we run into a problem, and let's say that problem is kind of reoccurring. To me, that becomes a pattern. So I have a pattern of this problem continually happening in my company, right? What a lot of business owners do is they'll go, oh, there's this problem, just get really good at overcoming fires and putting out fires, right? I'll look and like, well, we have this reoccurring problem. Good. That means then that we need to create a process or system to overcome that, So like instead of always putting out forest fires, how about we prevent them from ever happening in the beginning? So if we see that there's a pattern on something that's wrong, create a process system, put somebody in charge of it, give them key performance indicators that they can use to know that they're successful. And then you can measure the success based on those things. And now you prevent those problems from reoccurring and happening in the future. And somebody moans, right? And so that's the way that, we've done that, where again, we didn't do it great to start. Mentality is more like jump off the cliff and figure out how to assemble the wings on the way down and hope that you can start flying before you do. It's not always the best scenario, and it has burned me at times, but it's also surrounding myself with people that are like, okay, that's great that you want to jump off the cliff and do all this, but we're going to need to, do X, Y, Z and set up these processes and set up the training in order to do so. And that's where my wife really comes in handy at that part, because I'm not going like, what do you mean training? Just send them out there and get it done.
Makes sense. Interesting. I do see a lot of commonality between us. So, you know, Further, on your website, I see you have mentioned that you provide extensive employee training. I'm really curious, about what that looks in practice. Could you take us through, your training process, and from when someone, kind of firstly starts with you to when they're really hitting their stride?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of, we're with the group that helps us now too, but we have a lot that's in Slack. That's a portal for like whatever position they're doing. We have a lot of the training documents and videos for them to watch. And it depends on but let's say it's somebody in the field. We also have live fire training room with boilers, air handlers, ductless systems, ductwork, and heat pumps that are back here that we can train salespeople, service techs, even office staff. Honestly, sometimes they'll say, "Hey, is it possible if we could just go into the field and just to get a better idea?" Say, "I'll do you one even better. Let's just go right back here and we'll show you exactly what that looks like and what's entailed, so you can get a good idea. You can touch it and see it." That's been very helpful, especially when we do start to slow down. Sometimes in like March or something, we'll go, that's a good time to really give us a boost going into the springtime and let everybody really, roll up their sleeves and get some training there. But yeah, even to the training, same thing. So what I've learned with that is like, we used to just be like, hey, go into a van and go drive with this guy and hope that they're going to train you correctly. And sometimes it works, but there could be a better way, right? And so to me now, it's training has to be very intentional. My word for 2024 was intentional. And so it's like, how do you make sure that the training is intentional? And so training needs to be process driven. I notice if I'm in the room, for instance, and I have the same trainings I'm doing every time, there's a pattern, right? And if there's the pattern, then I'm like, well, I could continue this pattern and just waste my time every time I hire somebody or every time I got to go through this training. And I'll create a video for it. Absolutely. So the next time I train someone now, what I do is if I notice I'm doing the same thing over and over again or having the same conversation, I just record it. So big one that I use for that is Loom, Loom, or Line. And I just record Loom videos and they can be 5 minutes. Sometimes I'll do them in series. I'll create like, hey, here's a 5-part series on this task that I'm doing. And I'll use that to create the training. And from there, what I'll do is again, training has to be intentional. So if I'm saying, hey, I need you to watch these videos and then go out there and do it, that's not really great training. So the training's like, I need you to watch these videos, then let me know when you're done. Then when you're done, we're going to go over it together and I'm going to go over it and show and make sure that you understand it, right? And then I want to see you do the task from start to finish yourself. Test out of it. And the test needs to have some level of like endorsement. So a lot of times I'll literally have them sign off we have a lot of VAs, so if they're not gonna be able to sign off on something. So I'll literally have them in Slack or WhatsApp be like, yep, I watched the video, I did the training, I know exactly how to do this process, right? Now I can hold them accountable. So now moving forward, instead of worrying about that same problem reoccurring, I know I have somebody whose job it is to do that, received proper training, and then they've endorsed the fact that they got training. So now when they have a problem in the future, I can say, hey, Yash, I know that you got training because I literally have this signature here stating that you got the training and did it. But we have this gap here where you didn't do this process. Like, what's going on? How come we have this gap? What can I do to help you fill this gap? Let's do this. Why don't we sit down together and I want to make sure that we're going to do it. I'm going to watch you do it and ensure that you know how to do it moving forward. And people don't like that. So they're like, no, I got to, I was being lazy or whatever thing, right? And then if they keep having that same problem over and over again, then it's another coaching moment. And then during that coaching moment, you're like, I know we had this. I know we had the training. I know we had the coaching moment. We're still having this gap. What can we do here to make sure that we're moving forward in a positive direction? And what I found is, and I didn't make this up, I actually learned this process from Joe Crisera and his team at Service MVP. They have a phenomenal course called Performance Coaching class. And when I went there, I had so many books and trainings that I did on how to manage people. And I took this one class and it gave me goosebumps when I was in there because I'm like, this is hands down like the most simplest, easiest form to do it. And I've been running that process for a few years now. And hands down, it's the best way to manage and lead people. Because what I found is very rarely do you even need to fire anybody. Because if you run that process and let's say, Yash, you messed up again and you're coming back in the office, those coaching moments just naturally escalate. I'm like, listen, absolutely. Here's the thing, man. I'm going to need you to take today and tomorrow off, and furlough you. And well, what does that mean? Well, that means that, you're going to take some time to reflect on your own time. And then I want you to really think about if we can move forward positively once you get back. And then that might extend to a week off. Sometimes it could go, I've had it extend 2 weeks for somebody. And at the end, I need you to re-interview for the position. Like, are you serious? Very serious, because I need to make sure that you fully understand what it is and if you want to work forward and move forward positively. And so everybody thought I was crazy because the person I'm talking about, he was my lead service technician at the time, the best guy I had, but he continually was doing the same thing over and over again. I'm not going to lie. I was really nervous because I was like, I don't know, we might go interview somewhere else and be like, see you later. Right. 2 weeks came, he came back and he sat in the office and he's like, nope, I did a lot of thinking. My wife was pissed at me because I was home and she was like, why are you home? And he's like, has to tell her, see, that's the other dynamic, right? He's sitting at home. Why are you not working? Why is there no money coming in this week? Well, because I keep doing this thing wrong and not doing it correctly, right? So there's a lot of layers to it, why it works so well. And then now he comes back in. He's like, I want to go ahead. I want to move forward. And then from there, he's been clean as a whistle. So I don't know how we got on that topic, but
No, insightful. Your throwing does not me being so calm. Another follow-up question on this. How do you kind of, find and keep good techs? You talk about keeping them, but how do you exactly find them? Because kind of manage through location, right? And finding the techs who could work, according to the company culture and following the SOPs and stuff like that, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to attract and retain top talent. I would love some strategies on that.
yeah, so you nailed it. That's exactly the main problem that's plaguing the industry is that there is a lack of top talent. Just isn't there. You absolutely can build the people from within, but it does take a lot of time. But what we do is we have a full call by call process where a call by call manager, and instead of training people on exactly how to diagnose everything and do that, we have central people in place that can help. They can help do the diagnosing over the phone, tied into every single job where we run it through Slack. And they have these rules that they need to follow in order to get all this information in Slack. And most of the time when this is done correctly, it's very easy to help the tech diagnose what's going on. It also helps keep the person process driven because, right, let's say you and I are both service techs. I walk in and I'm like, hey, Mr. Homeowner, I hear that your heating system's not working. Great. Well, I'm going to go outside and look at the heat pump and I'm going to start there. Where you might be like, hey, Mr. Homeowner, I'm going to start upstairs in the attic. And who's right? No one's really wrong or right, but it's not really a process. It's just kind of hoping that your techs are going to find things and go through the jobs, right? We send them on. I talked to a local, I have a lot of friends in the area that own companies. So one of them are like, man, I hate these maintenance calls. We never make any money on maintenance calls. We're averaging $2,000 a maintenance call at our company. I love maintenance calls. My guys have actually become the opposite. They're like, forget these demand calls, man. I want maintenance calls. Because the way we run our company is so process driven that there's so much value to deal with the customer that's in front of us that cares about maintaining their system and making sure that it's going to run for a long time versus somebody who might have a 20-year-old heating system. They've never done any maintenance to it. Now it's not working. They might go with the more expensive repair, but a lot of times they're like, just what's the cheapest fix to get me in here, right? Mentality is different between each customers, right? But the difference is like having this dedicated process. What's really cool is I can take someone off the street, train him for 3 weeks. He learns the process. He uses the tools. All we need to do is make sure that he knows how to get specific vital information for us. And from there, I can plug them into our system. And it doesn't matter at what location we're at. They're able to run the process the exact same way. And then we can then have the support on the back end help them out from there. And so it requires having a lot less top level talent like companies have and being able to run it. It's pretty ingenious. I don't know if you're familiar with like Landon Brewer and Louis Bruno, but they're the ones that helped us implement it, and it's been absolutely phenomenal.
Interesting. Talking about the techs, right? You have been in these techs shoes, right? Starting from the ground up. What wisdom or what kind of strategy would you share with young technicians who are kind of dreaming, of owning their own business?
Yeah, I love the idea. I think that's what I think is so amazing for this industry. It's creating millionaires left and right. People who, like myself, man, I come from the hood, single parent, black household in Lowell, Massachusetts. If you look up Lowell, it's riddled with gang violence, drugs, poverty, and that's what I grew up in. And statistically, I should not be where I'm at right now. I owe everything that I have to this industry because at a young age, at 14, 15, it gave me something to put my head down, stick in the trenches, and focus on. Where I was stop hanging out with people that were doing bad things, stop smoking weed, stop getting in trouble, stop smoking, doing all this stuff, and really focused on this trade. And this trade's really what like saved me. I say it all the time, and so that's a huge passion for myself. Where I like to go to a lot of speaking events for people that are in second chance programs that may have come out of jail, or Massachusetts is really good at doing workforce development for minorities and stuff. And so I like to work closely with one company in particular that's a nonprofit, the Mass Clean Energy Center. So they're really focused on promoting energy efficient solutions. And one of the things they realize is there's a workforce problem. We have these big desires to be net zero as a state by 2050, but we don't have enough people that can go ahead and put these systems in, these heat pumps and certain things to help people get off of fossil fuel, right? So what do? We need to train those people up. Well, how do you train them if they don't even know about it? So like I said, I like to go to like high schools and I'll talk to the students, and I'll go to the hood. I'll go into Dorchester, Massachusetts, and these other cities, Taunton, like all these areas, and I'll talk to students. They have no idea that the trades are even a thing. Guidance counselors aren't talking about it. And there's this weird stigma with the parents where they're thinking, hey, like you could learn a trade, maybe you could fall back on, but I still want you to go to college. Well, then, meanwhile, I talk to kids that are in college or getting out of college, and they're not making any money because they picked some stupid ass like degree that didn't even do nothing for them, right? And so, again, there's a problem. It's being perpetuated. It's the same problem over and over again. Good. What's the solution? Let's start talking to kids at a younger age about alternatives and ways that they can make a crap ton of money very quickly, not have any student debt, and set themselves up so that in a few years from there, they're able to go out and start their own companies and become millionaires themselves.
Perfect, man. There was a recent study that Gen Zs in states are choosing trades more than ever. So seems that, they're kind of, actually getting the business sides of things correctly, I feel. And what you have done and, from where you have came, I respect you for that, Jonathan. Talking about the growth, going from one location to three is freaking amazing. What strategy do you think has really worked well for you, and how did you know that when it was the right time to expand?
Right time to expand. That's probably not going to be a good answer because it's going to get back to me just jumping headfirst into stuff and just going for it. But what's helped us to be able to expand and grow is really that culture, man. I talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh, these Gen Z kids and XYZ. And it's like, me, I've just leaned into it, like we have meetings every week. So we have a meeting that's in person on Mondays, and we have the install team, then we have the service and sales team. And I would challenge almost any company in the country to come to one of my meetings and tell me that they have better camaraderie between our divisions than we do. Our service and our sales team, because of the call by call process we have, is so synergistic that it's like a relay race, and they love helping each other out, and we all celebrate the wins together. And so Mondays, we all come together, we do that training. Then Tuesday, we have specific training just for the service techs via Zoom. Wednesday, it's with the sales guys. Thursday, it's a break. And then Friday, we have a meeting. And I love our meetings on Fridays because it's a Zoom training. where we're all together and we're just talking about the wins from the week, what went really well. We're shouting out people that did great work. And then everybody just goes through Zoom and they have, 5, 10 minutes, whatever, probably 5 minutes. And they're just talking about some wins. Usually it's personal. We don't want to keep it business related. So we're like, talk about some personal wins that you had this week or things you're looking forward to. And then we'll throw a curveball question in there. And so one of my guys, Kevin Polito, came up with the idea and it's been phenomenal. And what it's done is it's helping us all just to get to know each other better. So curveball question might be like, tell us your favorite movie or like, where are you going on vacation next? If you could have, last week it was, if you could have one skill set that's outside of work related, that you could like wave a wand and have this skill set, what would it be? And the answers were just amazing, but we're just trying to get to know each other better because, at the end of the day, everybody talks about culture, culture, culture. And it's like such a buzzword, but what does it really mean? And so some people are like, oh, I know, it means really nice uniforms, a brand new logo design. It means ping pong tables and free coffee and snacks. Those things are cool, but that's not really culture, right? Culture is relationships. And what I've learned about leading people is it all just comes down to relationships. If you're trying to lead someone, you don't have a relationship with that person, you're not going to be a very effective leader. I have guys that will literally fall on a sword for me because they trust me and love me as a leader, but I had to trust and love them first. So when I went out to Next Gen that's in California, I went there a couple years ago, Ishmael Valdez, and that was like probably my favorite takeaway from what he talked to me about. And, he was running great organization out there, sat with me. My favorite thing that I took from it is like, man, love on your guys. Love on your guys. Because at the time, we'd have company meeting and all I'd be doing was just crapping down their throat for 30, 40 minutes. And then I'd be like, all right, let's get out there and, go have a great attitude and go crush it. Dude, you just crapped on me for 30 minutes and now you want me to go out there to do a great job and treat the customers good? Nah, man. Instead, I started started off small. So, hey, we're going to be at these meetings. Everybody has to be at the meeting. And I went and bought breakfast burritos for everybody. We sat down, we talked, and I'm like, we're not even going to talk about work today. We're just going to kick it and just chill, lean in. Then I bought like a big speaker and we just started playing music that Gen Z's like. So I'm playing like Travis Scott and Drake and whatever, and just playing music and we're just wild bugging out and just chilling and laughing and talking. And then, just kind of continue those things were just very lighthearted. I'm like, all right, man, let's go out there. I love you guys. Let's crush it. And then over time, they just started to really look forward to these meetings and then look forward to crushing it and getting shout outs and wanting to do stuff for each other. And then that's the culture where now you can expand and you don't necessarily need to be like with the people, even if it's via Zoom. Everybody's loving on each other, bigging each other up, and just want to see everybody succeed.
Fantastic. Love that culture and confidence. So the key here is to establish informal communication and, kind of a personal relationship. And that's how you become a great leader. I'll follow up on this though. Let's say, because obviously being a leader, being the team leader, you would have a hard day as well because obviously you have got your own life too, right? And being a leader, how do you still get the positive energy flowing to the office when you go on a meet, when you are in a team meet? How do you resist that negative energy flowing out? What do you have in your mind?
Yeah, so that's probably like my favorite question you asked, man. That's a brilliant question because it is so true. Like I always think about it where, when you're leading people and you're trying to, spurn your team on and get them going, it takes energy out of you, like it does. It takes stuff out of you. And so you have to be the type of person that's going to wake up early and you're going to start putting energy into yourself. And so what that looks like is getting up and going to the gym in the morning, even if it's dumb early. It's time I'm going, I'm like, man, not early, but it's good because it's for me and I'm getting something out of it. It's the only time I can like really shut my brain off and just have my own time. It's time to reflect. A big one for me is waking up and the first thing I do is I look out my bedroom window and I, have trees and stuff in my backyard and I smile, whether I want to or not. There's a lot of studies that show like just smiling releases positive chemicals into your body and start your day off right. And when I smile, the next thing I'm doing is then just talking about the things I'm grateful for to myself in my head. And I'll look out the window and I'll smile and I'll be like, man, I'm so grateful to be alive right now. Just another day of life. I don't know what today's going to bring. I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm so thankful for my kids. I'm so thankful for my son. I'm looking right now. My son made me this birthday picture that he drew himself over the weekend. It's my birthday last over the week. And it was just such a nice thing that he did. He took time. He took a lot of time on it, and he made it very like unique and personal. I'm grateful for that, right? So I'm training my brain to always fuel on things about starting my day off being grateful and thankful for whatever, right? And I usually try to have like 6 things that I'm going to do. Then when I get up, I have a window that faces the front of the house, and that's where the sun rises. And so that's where I'll just have like words of affirmation, positive things. I'll do some breath work. And I usually always tell myself at the end of it, I'm always like, there's going to be something today. I don't know what it is yet, but there's going to be something today that's going to make today a great day. I'm going to find what that is, and I'm going to make today a great day. And if I don't believe it, I stay there until I believe it. And I keep telling myself that, and then I do it. And when I go, and then I'll find something. And so the other day, what I was talking about, I went to go put my computer in my backpack and leave. And when I did, my son had the little birthday card that he made for me. And it just immediately made me smile. And I'm like, there's one thing right there. I haven't even left the house yet. I already found one thing that made today a great day. And so by putting all that positive energy into myself, before I even show up for anybody else, man, I'm ready to rock. I'm not waking up out of bed the last minute drive. I got to get a cup of coffee, come to the office, not prepared for anything, and then expecting that I'm going to have this aura or positive energy to give anybody else to feed off of. Because 9 times out of 10, that's what a lot of the guys will do. They're going to come here and just absolutely, right? And so everything for culture always goes downhill. So if I'm that type of person, that's how my people are going to be. And that I can't expect them to go to my customer's home and give them this wow, amazing customer service. It got to start from me. So I got to start up here in the day. So when I give it to them and then they give it to the customers, and it can all continue that way.
Absolutely. I can feel the positive energy flowing through the other screen. So the key is to have a great, the key is to have the money to buy a house like that. Just kidding. So reflecting on the good stuff is important. And I get that. So it's a personal question. What time do you wake up?
It depends. It's usually 4:30 to 5 in the morning.
Yeah, that's pretty early. There's a follow-up question on that. Let's say any of your employee, any of your tech or whatever position they are, if they are not performing well, as per the KPIs, whatever might be the reason for that, what do you do in that situation? How do you communicate that? Hey, you gotta do better. How do you communicate that?
Yeah, nope, 100%. So again, it gets back to that same process I was talking about where that'll happen sometimes. So I'll have managers and they'll be complaining and it'll be like, oh, this person's not doing whatever. And it'll be like, okay, did you train them on the said thing that you talked about? Well, I feel like it's kind of common sense. They should just kind of already know that they need to do that. That's a big no-no in my company. There's no common sense. It all needs to be process driven. And again, you're coming from the person who's the worst with this slicky stuff, right? But I understand. I'm like, hey, I have the idea. It needs to be process driven. Someone else needs to create the process, right? But it needs to be process driven. So here's what you'll need to do. Yash, let's say it's you, right? You're screwing up with something. And I'm like, you should kind of know that that's really the case. But you know what? I didn't create a training on that specific thing. So now I'm just pause for a second. With ChatGPT and all this stuff, there's like 0 reasons why I've created so many SOPs in like 5 minutes with ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh, I didn't create a training process. Boom, I'm in ChatGPT. I'm putting the prompts out, create a training formula for this. Boom. Now I bring you into my office and I'm like, hey, Yash, man, let me talk to you real quick. We have a gap here. What we're expecting to happen with these, whatever KPI it is, you're not quite hitting it. And I just want to understand like what's going on. And then you start talking to me, and typically human nature, you're going to probably deflect because it's uncomfortable what I'm saying to you. And so you're going to be like, yeah, it was the office. They didn't put the right info here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm expecting that. And I'm like, and I'll let them finish and let them talk. And then I'm like, no, I understand that. And I can address that, but I want to really focus on this. What's the main concern here for you? How do we help? How do I help you here? Right. And then I'll ask them, were you trained on this? And if they're not, then the next thing is I got to take accountability. This is probably, if there's anything anyone's listening to, this is probably the number one thing that my guys absolutely love me for. So if I didn't get training on it, then I'm like, yo, Yash, you know what? That's my bad, bro. That makes perfect sense. I should have created that training for you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down and go about your day or whatever. I'm going to create this training. Tomorrow, I want you to come into my office and we're going to go over this together. Then I'm going to show you how to do it. Then I'm going to let you do it. Then I'm going to let you do it all the way through. And then I'm going to have you sign off on it saying that you know how to do it so we never have to run into this again. Would that help you? They'll say, oh yeah, that'll be great. Then I'll do that. Now at the end of the training, I can hold them accountable. And again, instead of me coming down and crapping down their throat, why didn't you hit this KPI? You actually empowered them to be able to hit it every single time. And then again, if they don't hit it again for whatever reason, you have another conversation with them, right? And again, the conversation is not based on how do I, yell at you or make you feel sort of way. It's how do I help you hit this KPI? And sometimes coming from that approach, man, I've had the craziest conversations with people. Convos that they're like, yo, I was literally ready to commit suicide the other day until we had this conversation. I don't know if you knew that. And the stuff that I've learned, like through it, it's just been insane, and being able to really help people beyond just hitting a KPI, but even in a personal life where they're able to, again, because I'm very big into learning and reading and growing. I've created this culture where now my team does the same thing and they're like always reading, learning and growing and becoming. What you find is, yes, you get better at your trade and at your skill set, but you become a better person too, But that's really it, is that like, it's not just a KPI. I think too many companies get focused on one thing and they lose this overarching human element where if I can help you become a better person in your life, you're going to probably hit KPIs. You're going to be the type of person that wants to show up on time. You're going to be the type of person that wants to go above and beyond for a customer. If I just focus on a KPI, it's like, okay, what is that? It's just maybe like one little aspect of something, right? And so what I've learned is like, that might be just like your action or something, but where does your actions come from? It's your behavior. Your behavior is going to come from your attitude. Your attitudes are going to come from your thoughts. Your thoughts are going to come from your values, and your values are going to come from your belief system. So if I just focus on a KPI, I didn't go deep enough into you to really help you understand the belief system as to why that KPI or any of these things are even important. So everything with me is belief and your mentality and starting there, because again, once you have the belief system, this is really important. And the reason why is this is important is this, and this really hits my values and it shapes the way I think. And those thoughts shape my attitudes. And those attitudes shape my behavior. And then my behavior shape my actions. And then I go about hitting whatever goals or KPIs that everyone's like.
Hmm. Absolute gold, my man. Also, the key here is to have training and SOPs for every single stuff. And if you don't really have that, if you haven't, send that or kind of forward that to your teammate, you cannot really dedicate the accountability, right? You have to have that. Makes perfect sense. Talking about the KPIs, I know it's not something that you focus a lot on, though. What would you say are some of the important ones to track?
It depends on the position. So, one that we definitely use a lot is gross blended average and lifetime value for customers. So every time a technician knocks on a door, I want to know how much money is that knock worth. And being able to use that helps, because a lot of people will use like average ticket amount or conversion rates. And it's like, well, what's going into those things, right? If I use a metric where every single time my tech or my salesperson knocks on a door, how much is that knock worth? I don't care if it's a knock for a callback, if it's a knock for a warranty call, a maintenance call, a service call. If I can measure that KPI, then I can know if I'm going to be profitable at the end of the month or not, right? Where some of the other ones, like I said, I can skew them a little bit, or I want to know what, like, my conversion rate is, but, we're not going to include, recalls or this, that, or third, right? Because if I include everything and my number's low, then now I can start to dig into finding out, well, why is that gross blended average low? We have too many callbacks. Like, for instance, right now in my company, we have too many callbacks. Why do we have too many callbacks? What's going on? Who are the people that are causing the callbacks? What are the callbacks for? We start seeing a pattern, right? Was what? We're putting in these specific type of furnaces and they're running and working and they're showing in Slack, yeah, system's up and running. We're ready to go. We're out of here. Then a day later, the customer's calling back saying they don't have heat. Well, then we start tracking and find, well, we have the same problem almost every time that, well, the drain line's being ran, the water's being, not flowing out of the furnace correctly, and eventually shuts the pressure switch off, and now they don't have heat, and then somebody has to go back and fix it. Well, we could just always be the type to just always putting out fire, or we can stop for a second and be like, okay, we're having that problem. Good. What do we need to do to fix it? Well, we need to create a training on it. So let's send someone out, and I want you to literally record exactly what it is that you did to fix that. Then on the next meeting, we're going to go over it as a team, and everyone's going to understand exactly what goes into that. And then every team's going to come off and say, hey, I got training on knowing exactly how that particular furnace gets drained. And guess what happened to those callbacks? They went away. And so it's that same approach that you kind of, that you keep having with that. And so to me, I think that gross blended average is one of the most important. There's a lot of other ones like payroll percentage. We want to make sure that if I can keep payroll percentage in line, what we're spending on equipment, and I can keep my gross blended average up, and then I can look at the gross blended average of my teams and the gross blended average of my team members. And if the team is dropping, then I can look and see, well, what team member's having an issue. And then if he's having an issue, then I can pull him in as a relationship-based coaching moment and be like, where's the main gap here for you? And then find it out. Is it a training issue? Is it a belief issue, right? If it's a belief issue and I just can't overcome that, then I might need to promote him eventually to a customer because he's probably not the right person for the culture we have here, right? Because some people just aren't. They're not willing to change their belief system. They want to just keep doing things the way they've been doing them. And there's plenty of companies you can go work for that will allow you to do that.
That makes perfect sense. Are you using Slack for all the communication?
Yeah, most of it. We've been on WhatsApp from when we were smaller, so we're making that full transition to go to like completely in Slack because right now we have way too many places that we're like talking to people, and so that's one of the problems that we were finding that now we're changing. So we're trying to make it where everything's just centralized, and so we've already been doing all the call by call on Slack. We're just going to switch it all over to that.
Makes sense. Talking about the marketing, what are some of the main channels you're spending on?
So dominating the local search is huge. So Google business profile, that's a big reason why I have the multiple locations because that's tough when you're just hitting, your one square area. So getting more of those is helpful. Direct mail is something that we use. And we also I have people that work for me that live in the Philippines and they do cold calling. So what we do is we have direct mail that goes out to the area. And let's say it's a tune-up. So it's a low cost tune-up, $49 tune-up. So we send that out first and then we have them call just a cold call list and just tell them, hey, we're offering a hometown discount. Typically our tune-ups are $199. We have a special. It's only $49. I'm not sure if you saw that postcard or not, but it's for a limited time. And we want to, go ahead and set that up for you. We're going to be in your street. It looks like Wednesday at 7:00. Does that time work? And then someone says, yes, that's great. And then they just set it up. So that's helped a lot because then we go in and run our call by call play where the guys are running the same exact play every time. And then, it usually turns into, for us, about a $4,000 per lead on each sale. But again, we're including every single lead, whether it's warranty calls, repairs, all of that. And so we found that when we're running $3,500 to $4,000, it's very profitable per sales lead. So that's another key that we use.
That's a really interesting approach. The latter one you said on direct mail plus cold calling, that's something which I think is a very unique approach, to be honest. Talking about the GBP sides, I think, yep, I know it's crazy good strategy. On my channels, I published a couple of free tutorials, and I know how great it could be. I've seen, and with my prior clients as well, I've seen them going from $1 million to 2 million, 3 million, just from that one single channel. Talking about the direct mail, what company are you using for that?
Up well,
Mm, gotcha, gotcha.
been like amazing or not, but I don't really have any paired some.
Makes sense. What's next for Green Energy Mechanical? What's your vision for the future? What are you gonna do in the next, let's say, 3 years?
3 years. That's a good question. So I definitely want to keep expanding our market. The Boston area, it's a little annoying getting into Boston, but a lot of people live around it. And so I want to continue to expand so we can reach more partners that live around the Boston market. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm not really focused. Before I used to get kind of like the shiny key syndrome. I'd look at other companies around the country and like, oh man, they're hit 50 million, 100 million, all these numbers. I don't really care about that anymore. My biggest focus is making money and being efficient. And what I found is I've chased revenue for a lot of time, and I've got burned from it a bunch too. And so the big thing for 2025, I have two words. Usually I only have one word for the year, but my word for 2025 is relentless. And or excuse me, not relentless. Relentless is the marketing company I use. And that computer relentless. It's ruthless and momentum. And so momentum is a bunch of moments that add up to gaining momentum. Actually, you're going to be reading good to great. So this will probably help, you when you're reading, but this is a flywheel that I keep on my desk. And I'm real big into, if I try to turn this wheel and it hasn't been turning, it's going to take a lot of energy at first. But after a while, I'll be able to put much less input into it. Eventually, it's just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning with very little input. And so momentum is really important to me this year, where I don't want to focus so much on top line revenue. I think that's great, but that bottom line revenue and finding more ways to be efficient, really like becoming obsessed with. And I want my goal is to be reaching over 20% profit and finding ways to stay there as we continue to grow. That's what I'm obsessed about right now.
Great, man. And I know you would pretty much easily achieve that. Coming to the last one, what's gonna be one tip for a newcomer in the industry? What would you say?
A tip for that, huh? The newcomer in the industry, I would say it's just never stop learning, never stop growing, and network. Like for years I had my company, and it was a little bit before social media and stuff was really popping. Once I started getting on social media and on the different sites, I'm surprised at how many business owners I talk to that I'll ask them, are you in industry specific groups on Facebook? They're like, no. I'm like, bro, you're crazy. I've gained some of the dopest relationships with people around the country that are all willing to help at crazy times. I've spoken to other HVAC owners and plumbing owners at midnight, and we're just talking, they're helping me, and then they're sharing books and strategies and manuals. And then even locally, I have such a badass network of friends that all own HVAC companies. A lot of us are competitors, and we'll openly share stuff with each other because all of us share this abundance mindset. Understand that there's so many people that need our services. And so even when we go up against each other at a home or something, it's like, yeah, they're a good company. That's my boy. He is a good company. Just going to depend on, which way you want to go. But if you go that way, I'm not going to be mad at you because they are good. And, usually if we win, then I'll just rub it in their face and, crap. But at the end of the day, it's all love, right? And so that networking has really helped me hit other levels and overcome stumbling stones that I would have normally stumbled over and instead turn them into building blocks. So that's what I would say. Networking is probably the thing I would say the biggest thing.
Absolutely agree. I guess the word for 2025 would be abundant. There's enough in the market to make for everyone. You just have to kind of, have that mindset. Absolutely agree on this. And yeah, that was all for today's one, guys. Jonathan, do you have any other stuff to mention over here?
No, man, I just hope 2025 is good for you, good for your listeners, man. And thanks for having me on.
It was a pleasure. Guys, that was all. I'll see you in the next one. And I hope you love this one. Just comment below if you have got any other question. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Have a great, great, great day.